Hello and welcome to License to Chill, the Margaritaville Podcast. My name is Ryan.
My name is Patrick. This is your weekly vacation away from whatever you're doing to come hang with us, get a little island in your system.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a really, really cool episode. We are talking to one of the biggest legends in all of music, specifically in the Buffett world, but on so many other facets. This was such an incredible conversation, Ryan.
It was so cool. And, you know, I think for this one, it was just fun for us to take a step back and just listen to stories.
Yeah, you know, it was a very special opportunity to listen to somebody who's really seen it all, who was literally there for some of our favorite moments from Jimmy Buffett and from other types of music and from other iconic artists. So when you get a chance like this, you don't get too into it. You let them go.
Yeah, I mean, these were songs that we were raised on.
Yeah.
Elvis songs, Buffett songs, Joan Baez. Like, everybody he talks about is someone that I listened to when I was a kid, that my mom played me when I was, you know, like 3 years old.
Exactly. So our guest today is a legendary producer. He is involved in some of the re-releases that are coming out this summer on vinyl because he was there when they were recorded. He was one of the main producers on Changes in Latitude, Changes in Attitudes, including Margaritaville itself, from which everything came. He also was a bass player and played for artists like we mentioned, Elvis Presley, Ray Charles, Linda Ronstadt, so many incredible people. Dan Fogelberg, Joan Baez, the list goes
Roy
on
Orbison,
and on. We're going to let you tell him.
My goodness.
Yeah, we're going to let him tell you himself. So please, without further ado, welcome to the show, Norbert Putnam. How'd you guys first meet, you and Jimmy? When did you guys cross paths first?
Jimmy Buffett was produced, he did Come Monday with my friend Don Gap, a great producer, great singer. Don and I were in a band together called the Neon Philharmonic. And I don't know if you ever heard any of those records. We had a song called Morning Girl. Morning Girl, how'd you feel? And, but anyway, so Gant passes, and I'm a successful producer. I'm now 7 years into producing. And so Don Gant was his lawyer, sends Jimmy over to see me. And he's telling me about this great band that plays more like the Rolling Stones than a Nashville studio band, right? And I was trying to imagine the Rolling Stones playing Come Monday. It wasn't working. But he said, would you come and see my band? He says, trust me, they're really good. And I said, okay, I'll come and have a look. And so I went out to Hermitage Landing. In the hotel here, is a facsimile of that ticket there to see Jimmy Buffett in 1976. I think that was the night I saw it. Wow. And they had a barge they'd push offshore about 50 feet. I don't know why. Maybe they thought the fans would swim out there. But the band came out, and it was a rock and roll band, okay? I mean, I loved the band, all right? And so I went backstage, and I said, okay, come and play me songs. I want to see what sort of song. And a couple of days later, he comes in, and it's all this carousing, drinking, Caribbean sailing songs, right? And I liked it. And Jimmy said, well, what are your thoughts? and this is where I almost lost him, because I said, I'd like to use some of the indigenous instruments of the Caribbean, like wooden flutes and marimbas and steel drums. He goes, that sounds like a James Michener movie. He says, I'm paraphrasing it, but he wasn't very pleased with what he thought was going to be a soundtrack. And he said, well, I'll call you. And he left. And I thought, I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just said, well, I don't know. We'll work on it later, right? About 2 weeks goes by, and my phone rings, and it's Jimmy Buffett, and he goes, you know, that idea you had might actually work. That was exactly what he said. It might actually work. Okay?
I think it did.
I said, well, so you want to do the record with me? And he goes, I've started the first song. See, I'd suggested also that we work in Miami. He didn't like that. He wanted to work at my famous studio, right?
Yeah,
sure.
I couldn't get into my studio because, and so we're going. He said, the song is called "Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitudes," we're leaving Nashville and we're going to the ocean. So he's blessed the whole thing. And so we're going to Criteria, which is one of my favorite places to work, especially in the wintertime. And we get down there, and Jimmy had enough money to buy a used sailboat. He brings that to Coconut Grove. And so we'd work. Oh, by the way, I'm working. I said, Jimmy, I only work from 11 to 5. Those days when I was a studio guy and I worked around the clock, and he said, well, work at night? That's when everybody wants to sing. I said, I'm 35 years old. I'm trying to get out of this business. He said, okay, I'll do it. Okay.
Some good that did.
and so we get down there, and so we would get. He rehearsed his band, okay, which was an important thing. I was worried about them playing for microphones rather than people. They're playing the songs beautifully, okay, and I'd brought in a couple of ringers. A great Nashville drummer was a guy named Kenny Buttrey. He was on Neil Young, Dobie Gray, worked with Simon and Garfunkel in New York, the Boxer. And I said, Jimmy, I want to bring this percussionist in. He can play congas and tambourine. And he said, what's his name? I said, Kenny Buttrey. Well, he's a great drummer, isn't he? Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't want to say if your drummer stumbles, we got the guy, right? Sure enough, one morning at breakfast, Jimmy says to me, I've got another song I'm trying to finish. And I said, well, what is it? He said, I think I'm going to call it Margaritaville. I said, well, what's it about? It's sort of like a morning in Key West. He said, I sit in a bar one night and I had my flip-flops and I was just wearing a swimsuit and T-shirt. He would get up anywhere a singer-songwriter would be, and he would do 20 minutes, right? And he said, walking home, I stepped on a beer can and cut my foot. And the next morning, I'm trying to get going, and I got some shrimp boiling out on the patio, and I got my guitar, and I'm trying to make a drink. I thought, well, this could actually be a good song, I said, well, if you get it finished, let me know. And sure enough, the last week of recording, I think on the Wednesday, he came in on a Wednesday morning with a scratched out legal pad with a bunch of lyrics on it. And he sat down where the rhythm guitar player sat and started singing Margaritaville, talking about all those tourists covered in oil. It was, this is before MTV, right? But I was thinking, what a great film this would make on the song.
Yeah.
Well, and the song was great as it went forward, as a music publisher, I was always looking for the hook, and I was always looking to see if there was any conflict. You can't write a song about just being at the beach with your girlfriend, and it's a beautiful day, And so we get through the first 2 verses, and he goes into that chorus. I'm wasting away in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt, and here it comes. Some people claim there's a woman to blame, but I know it's my own damn fault. You got to give the guy a hug now, right?
Yeah.
We have a conflict. And he's resolved the conflict. And I looked at the band. They looked at me. Everybody saying, "This is a hit record." Okay. Okay. So we start on it, and the band has had no rehearsal. And the drummer Michael Gardner, who was a great drummer, was sort of confused about what to play. And after a couple of takes, I asked Buffett if we shouldn't try Kenny Buttrey, and he got on the drum set. He's an old pro. And the second take is what you hear on the record.
Really?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
That's incredible.
So my ringer saved us on that song.
That's incredible.
And we had another guy from New York who played all those harmonics on Banana Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a classically trained guitarist,
Wow.
So we had a great band. Mike Utley played all those great clavinet parts.
Yeah.
Michael Utley should have been the co-producer because he saved my butt on so many things, He just
That's incredible.
As a matter of fact, Michael stays in the band after that, and he was there for changes for what was the second record? Son of a Sailor, yeah. And he and I wrote all the orchestral parts.
Wow.
Because we could both write strings and brass and woodwinds and all that stuff.
That's incredible.
What I wanted to give Jimmy was to make him more accessible to a broader audience than maybe what he had, the great ballad that we did, Coast of Marseille. That vocal, did you notice what a good vocal that
Amazing.
was?
It's beautiful vocals. Yeah. And it starts with the ocean. I mean, that whole thing is a moment. I know exactly where I am when I'm listening to that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was written by Keith Sykes, a Memphis boy, who later shows up on Volcano.
Yeah.
And as you know, one of the things that's about to happen is we're re-releasing those 3 albums on vinyl. All right. And I've just approved the first 2. There's one more to go.
Norbert, I had a question before we have so many questions for you. You're gonna have to cut us off.
Well, and you can chop all this up.
No. We're leaving all
We're
of this
leaving
in.
it all in. Leaving in every hiccup. There was an urban legend that we've read for years and years and years that Margaritaville was originally written for Elvis Presley. This is what's up on the internet. It was written for Elvis, but then Elvis passed away kind of around the same time that Jimmy ended up finishing this song. Can you give any validity to that, or any truth, or where that story came from?
I doubt that story's true.
Okay. We're going to go edit Wikipedia.
Myth-busted.
I was playing bass for Presley in the 70s. Okay?
Yeah, we know that too. We were curious about that.
I played on 120 recordings between 1970 and when he died.
Wow.
I played on the last record he made, Unchained Melody. Okay?
Wow. You played on Unchained Melody?
That was the one where he went over to the piano at a concert.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were recording all his concerts. They maybe had some idea he wasn't healthy enough, you know.
Yeah.
But he went to he hadn't rehearsed it with the band. He went over and played and sang Unchained Melody, but he played a wrong chord in the chorus. You know, it goes 4 up to 5, 4 back down to 3 flat. Okay, he got the melody right, but it was instead wrong. So we had to correct that in the studio.
Wow.
And then I put the bass part on. And about a week later, they did the Las Vegas Orchestra, you know, with all the brass and strings. And I flew to Hawaii with my kids. We were on vacation over there. And one day I went down to Honolulu to pick up some food for the house we were renting. And I turned on the radio, and they're playing Elvis music. They never did that in America, you know. And by the time I got to Honolulu, they were going into another one. I got some food, came out. Elvis died that morning in Memphis. Oh, you know, I worked with 2 artists that I played for, and that was Ray Charles and Elvis Presley, and they were the purveyors of emotion.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it never got any better than that. But I didn't mean to get off into this sort of stuff.
No, please, we love it.
That's fascinating to us. We're interested in anything and everything you have to tell us. So
yeah,
I'm going to send you a copy of my book, okay?
Please do.
It's a whole series of short stories and about those guys.
We want to talk about this book because I don't know if you know this, it is very difficult to find.
yeah, and you're doing a second pressing, right, of the book?
Yes, and I'm adding a little bit to it.
Okay,
Obviously,
great.
Jimmy's gone now. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have a few pages to talk about that.
Great.
And Elvis is gone.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably adding another 30, 40 pages to it.
Amazing.
But it's so, you know, I published it myself.
Wow.
Because nobody give me a deal. They say, I'll give you $5,000 and I promise to never. Well, if you do a regular deal, you never see any money unless you become Greg Iles or somebody, Cheryl. Right. But so Cheryl and I published it ourselves. And by the way, there's a few copies that you can get on Amazon. What was one went for $400?
Yeah, that's the one I was going to buy. It wasn't me. I was close.
Well, Cheryl says she's got some copies.
Thank goodness. Okay.
We love to read it.
I was about to blow a paycheck on it.
Yeah. There's 2 other albums specifically we wanted to ask you while we had you, which you mentioned Volcano, but you also helped produce You Had to Be There Live, which is, in my opinion, the best live album of all time.
Incredible.
It's so incredible. The way you captured the energy.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's
I've
an
been
amazing
talking
album.
to the guys out at Universal Music, right? They own all of this, and they first phoned me about doing Atmos mixes before Christmas on some of this, and I said, but we have to do the live album,
Yes.
because we had audience mics, so I could have it really. You could hear people milling around and back.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And the other thing was Jimmy had he made 4 or 5 albums before Don Gant did Come Monday. some great songs were back there that were never heard, but we were able to do them on the live album, you see. And so, yes, that encapsulated Jimmy Buffett at that moment in time better than anything we ever did, I thought.
It was so cool. I think there's a couple. I mean, I think Morris's Nightmare is probably one of those songs that we still played on Radio Margaritaville. Yeah. The live track only lives live. Right. I think it's incredible live. And then that version of Pencil Thin Mustache is one of our favorites.
My favorite version of that song.
Amped. Like it's just like another level. And listening to that whole album, it is a feat of producing too, because it really, I just haven't really heard another live album like it.
Well, there's a good story in my book about that, okay? I was worried about the band, okay? We're going to do 2 nights at the Fox Theater, then go down to Gusman Hall in Miami and do 2 nights. So I got 4 shots at any bad mistakes the band might make, because those guys partied a lot. They need to imbibe a little bit, or worse. And so before they went on stage at the first concert, I almost threatened them. If any of you guys play a bad note, I'm going to kill you, right?
Right.
And so I'm in the truck with Marty Lewis, great engineer. We're out in the parking lot, and it starts, and about halfway through it, Marty turns to me and goes, "Norbert, this is okay. I haven't heard anything, dude." I said, "Could it be we're going to get a whole concert with no bad notes?" Okay. And we get the whole concert. And then I made a terrible mistake as a producer. I had the band come out to the truck, and I played it back, and I said, "Guys, I want to tell you, on a scale of 10, this is a 9. Now you can see you can do it. So tomorrow night we're gonna get the ultimate live concert." I never got another note that I could use. Okay.
That was it.
Bad call by the record producer. I should have said, it just really sucked tonight. But,
they're like, 9 is good.
But I have to tell you, it did capture Jimmy's energy.
Yeah.
Better than we ever got in the studio, didn't we?
Yeah.
So
oh my goodness.
The only thing I said to Jimmy later on, I said, I should have recorded, we should have filmed all the concerts as we recorded them, especially when we got down to New Volcano at George Martin's place in Montserrat.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that too. So you were down in Montserrat, of course, with everybody. I mean, any stories you can have from that time? We watched the documentary not too long ago, but that whole studio is so legendary, and I want to know every single thing that happened down there. So anything you can relate to us.
Well, I also got Jeff Emmerich to come and engineer, who did all the Beatles stuff, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'd see him every morning. I'm still doing 11 to 5, by the way, okay? And so I'd see Jeff at breakfast, and I'd say, "All right, tell me, how did you do McCartney's bass parts? What mic did you use? What kind of amplifier was it?" And he was great. And you know what he said to me? He said, "Well, Paul showed me how to do that." No engineer would ever give credit to a musician. He said, "So Paul is playing guitar or piano on most of the tracks and would overdub the bass as we went along. And so we would come in, just the 2 of us. None of the other band members, George Martin didn't come. And Paul would plug in his bass, and he said, I put the mic over in front of the amp, like you always do it, and he's on a stool about 10 feet away with a long cord. And we do one, and he came in and he said, "It doesn't sound right." And he said, "Well, Paul, what is it?" He said, "Well, come out here in the room and listen." And he said, "I went over and I stood by Paul, and it sounded different. The room added something." And I said, "Well, what did you do?" "Oh," he says, "I got the mic and I put it by Paul. The mic was 10 feet away from the amp."
Wow.
I said, "That was a secret?"
That's crazy.
Well, Jeff Emmerich was an honest man. They gave Paul credit for that,
That's amazing.
That's so cool.
It's those little tweaks, right?
I mean, that's got to be so much of producing, is like little tiny moments that changed everything, little light bulb moments left and right, and probably moments that are brilliant to you that you describe to someone else and they go, "Okay." Just make it. But it's
I would write all this stuff. I worked with a lot of famous engineers because I was convinced they had a secret to recording and mixing. You know what I found out? It was terrible. I found out that all of them were able to balance. We'd come in the morning, and Jeff Emmerich would start pushing up faders from work we did the day before. And in 3 minutes, by the time he's pushed them all up, it's a perfect mix. I said, "Jeff, are you telling me? He said, well, Norbert, we were known as balance engineers. We were never known as engineers. And we were taught to balance because in those days it was stereo and mono, right? And Bill Schnee, I worked with Bill Schnee. He could balance. I said, you can balance it in 30 seconds. I said, I can't use this because I can't balance it in 30 seconds. These people were actually talented.
Norbert, I want to go back a little bit to the recording of Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitudes. I heard a story that Jimmy, at the end of the day, that you all would go out to his sailboat and listen to the recordings that you did that day. Is that correct?
It's absolutely correct, and it was an important part of the deal. Jimmy said, I'll bring my boat over to Coconut Grove. Well, he had it brought over, and so we work 11 to 5, jump in our rent a convertible Chrysler and put the top down, get a 6-pack of beer, and go to the boat. And crank up the diesel, motor out, pull her into the wind, tire off. And we go down below where the cassette deck was, and you shove the cassette in, and he's up there, and I turned him, he said, louder, louder. And so we had it to the point the boat was vibrating. And then we'd go up there and drink a beer and listen to the day's work, you know. And we noticed that some songs, the way the crest of the wave and the bow would slam down on it, I think it might have been Jim who said, you know, the criteria is it's got to sound good on a boat. I said, you're right. We got to make a record that sounds good. That was after maybe 2 or 3 beers. Okay. But you know, years later, I would go on some of my wealthier friends' yachts. They'd have all the Jimmy Buffett records. Okay. I think that was our audience in the beginning, you know, before all the fan clubs and everything.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you
cool.
really hit on that vibe, right? There's never been a sound like it, never been a sound like it since. When you landed on, you know, using those particular instruments, Jimmy's voice, his songwriting, did you immediately recognize, like, this is a different type of sound, this is a different type of country, this is a different type of rock, or did that formulate over time?
No, well, Utley and I had talked about, no, we recorded with just his band, okay? And I brought in a couple of guys that I talked about. But Michael and I are going to go back to Nashville to my studio and put the Caribbean sounds in. A great percussionist here in Nashville, Farrell Morris, played the marimba, the steel drums. He could do all. He was a classical player. He played with the symphony, and he could play in time, okay, with the band. So and we used Billy Pewitt, who did all the flute parts. He would play on separate tracks, parts 1 and 2, and the Nashville strings. All right, and I wanted to. I was going to spread him with the ballads because he had that lower baritone voice that I could use, and I thought there'll be people who will like this more than his rock and roll. So I was trying to incorporate different things in every album to appeal to different people.
I got to ask you, too, I mean, while we're talking about Changes in Latitudes, that album ends with Landfall, which is, to me,
yes,
one of my favorite upbeat Buffett songs. I mean, it's such a party and such an unbelievable ending to an album. It just ends it up. Like, it ends it, like, shoots it into the moon. It's just such a cool album.
Jimmy did that because Jimmy would make the sequence, okay? And I think he did a great job with all of that, don't you?
Yeah, totally.
And Tampico Trauma.
Yes.
Boy, that was a great kick track.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
And so and Michael and I wrote the horns for that.
Wow.
You know, you get in the overdub, you've got to write this stuff out. They don't just come in and you sing it to them. And so,
right.
So I feel like it was a good day when I met Jimmy Buffett for me. And I think I did a decent job for the guy, you know.
Yeah, I think so. I also want, you know, if you're willing to share some stories, you know, you all had obviously an amazing working relationship, but just your personal relationship as well. Can you talk about him as a person, as a friend?
The thing I say about Buffett, he was a lot of fun. Now, making a record's a pretty serious thing for me, okay? But he brought the fun to it, all right? And I realized early on, as I said, that in the first 2 or 3 takes, he's going to give me all the emotion I need. And so my job was to capture it in 3 takes before the band fell apart or before. And honestly, most of those things were maybe the second take. Okay. if he gave me the emotion, that was the take. I didn't mind if he's a little out of tune here or there. Sinatra was a little out of tune. Presley's a little out. People don't pay any attention to pitch, you know. They think it's a softball, you know, a baseball. I don't know. But I could do everything except hang out with him all night. I couldn't do that, you know. I'd say, I'll see you at breakfast, so he was a heavyweight. You know, he could go all night and sing all day. And I was a little, you know, he was 5 years younger than I. And when I was so shocked when he died, I thought I'd definitely be the first to go.
But, what's it like to revisit these albums as you guys are remastering them for vinyl? Is it fun to revisit this stuff from the past? Is it hard to listen to things that you would have done differently now? Like, where's your headspace?
No, I'm okay with it now. Back then, when the record would come out, I'd sit there and there'd be 10 things wrong with it.
Yeah, okay? Sure.
Yeah.
That I couldn't do because constraints of money. Mm-hmm. We had a $55,000 budget to do Changes in Attitudes, Latitudes.
Wow.
The second album, Son of a Sailor, we had $1 million budget.
Wow.
Okay. Well, they're trying to get him to take this money so he doesn't ask for more. but I don't know. I was pretty pleased with the way we worked together.
Yeah.
Because he was at 11 o'clock, he was ready to go. He was getting to bed early when we did the records, and I was getting to bed early.
That's cool.
And so, the formula I had, the band knew they had to be able to play at 11 o'clock. So we had to cut them off early, you understand?
That's probably not an easy thing to do sometimes.
I know.
Well, it wasn't my responsibility because I wouldn't stay up that late, you know. But
right.
we had people. Jimmy brought, by the way, his entire cast. We're talking about the roadies, the guys who did live sound, and they were sort of responsible for keeping orders, Jimmy would like to say. And so those were great days. They were just great days.
So fun. That's incredible.
And and I love to hear the recordings now. Okay, and basically I'm listening though to see if we've captured as much of the sound on the vinyl as possible. You know, and I'm working with a great engineer out at Capitol Records. And he's doing an amazing job. And I've got the originals I can compare it to.
Sure, yeah.
Is there anything, you know, I love listening to albums. You know, one of my favorite Charlie Parker tracks is that one where he's like so drunk somebody screams blow in the background. Is there anything that we maybe haven't heard or because we don't have such a trained ear as you, that if we re-listen to any of these albums, we might hear something in the background that was, you know, someone's keys jangling or anything.
Some Easter eggs,
yeah. Well, yes, but I have to go back and I hear them, but I don't think anybody else hears them, you know?
Fascinating.
Nothing major.
Yeah,
Nothing
just
major,
little stuff, just room stuff. Yeah.
I can't think of... Oh, the only time Jimmy Buffett ever overdubbed his voice was on the live album.
Wow.
I think it was when he was doing Margaritaville. Some people claim there's one to blame, and there was some profanity in there. Okay? And we had to take out GD and replace it with my own. Okay. Okay, listen for that and tell me if you can hear the difference.
Okay,
we'll try to look.
I doubt we'll be able to hear it.
Because he's in a booth at Air London Studios. We mixed it in England.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, okay, first of all, we get the live album with 4 dates, two in Atlanta, and so we're sitting there on all this money, and Jimmy had $1 million budget. And I said, have you ever been on a great ocean liner? No. I said, you know, the way to go to Europe, and I said, I'd like to mix it at Air London, George Martin's place. And he said, oh, he hadn't been to England. I'd love to go to England. I said, well, why don't we take the QE2 out of New York to Southampton? And it's a great ocean liner. I'd taken it many times. Oh, he said, let's do that. And I was doing Dan Fogelberg. He says, can I go? and this is right after we do the live album.
Yeah.
And we're on the boat going over trying to think of a name for this live album. And somebody said, "Well, you had to be there." And I said, "That's it."
Yeah.
And so, but that's the only overdub I can think of. Okay.
That's amazing.
We're gonna look
because
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit too about the recording of Volcano? Just working in that studio in Montserrat must have been incredible.
Well, it was. First of all, George Martin had his own little house there, and he let Jimmy and I stay there. We're the big shots, right?
Wow.
And James Taylor comes down too. Okay, and we got James Taylor and his brothers, and I forgot what we called them. The embarrassing stains is what we called them on the record. Okay, and we got a great chef from Trinidad that Martin is employed, and there's an open bar, and of course the girl said to us, "Now we've got to charge you for your drinks." We said, "I'll put it on the budget. We got a giant budget," and that didn't work out well because at the very end of the record, we're about to leave the island, and and we got all of these 2-inch tapes, right? And the girl comes out and she says, "Mr. Putnam, Mr. Buffett, Mr. George Martin says, you must pay your bar bill or I must retain the tapes." She's English,
Oh my
And
goodness.
and Jimmy said, "Well, sure. How much is it?" She said, $9,000. Well, Jimmy looked at me and I looked at him. And Jimmy said, "Well, I could give you my American Express card." So we finally got out. Otherwise, they were going to keep the tape. Okay.
Oh my
Well, that's how they do it. That's how they get you.
I often said to Buffett, I said, we should film these damn things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you could see what was happening to put it all together, it would be like the Beatles' Hard Day's Night.
Sure.
Or something, People were running around, falling in the pool, and all kinds of interesting things.
Well, I know.
Fingers and James, the two Taylor brothers,
Mm-hmm.
they stayed up for 2 days playing the blues. James loved the blues, and Fingers could play it all day and all night. And they come to the studio, and they're asleep back there on the rug in the back of the room. And I need Fingers to do a harp part. So I go over and I'm shaking Fingers. Well, I said, "I need you to go out there and do a solo." "Okay, where's the mic?" He wanders out there. And I played just that part to him. "Okay, let's make one," he said, like out of breath. He plays this incredible solo. And I look around, he's asleep again. Okay? He's over there asleep, okay?
That's incredible.
So I have to tell you, he was one of the greatest players I've ever worked with. And of course, at that point, Russ Kunkel has come in to play drums, okay? Who was one of my favorite drummers with Fogelberg. Kunkel and Fogelberg and I were the rhythm section for most of Dan's records. And so we had and of course, Emmerich is showing me certain miking techniques that he used for the Beatles, and I'm writing it all down, on my little notebook. And we recorded Kunkel's drums with 2 overhead mics, the old BBC ribbon mics about here, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a mic on the snare and one on the kick. Fantastic sound just with 4 mics. He knew how to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're talking to Russ on Monday, I think. So
yeah.
We'd say hello for me.
I totally will. Yeah. And if there's anything you need us to bring up for him from the past, we're happy to call in anything he did in Montserrat.
Any starting points for us you have?
Well, no, I have to tell you, Kunkel's a professional. Okay, yeah. He's always ready. He takes care of himself, and he was always ready to go at 11 o'clock. And he's just about my most favorite drummer in the whole world. I'm doing Fogelberg, and I think in '77 I have Dan's Netherlands album and Jimmy's album. Both of them did triple platinum that year.
Wow.
Sure, that was one of my good years. Okay, so my wife is here, So Dan and I've been out to Caribou Ranch doing tracks out there, and we had one song that the drummer kept playing too much on. We tried 2 or 3 different drummers, And it was still too much, just a little acoustic guitar ballad kind of thing. So we're out at the record plant doing the final overdubs in L.A. And Dan says, what about that guy that played on Fire and Rain? Well, that was Russ Kunkel, and he was hitting it with not sticks, but with brushes. Wow. He pulled pulled it down tight, and I said, should we try to get him? He said, get Kunkel. So I called. You call his manager, right? And the manager says, well, then, Mr. Kunkel charges 4 times double scale. I paid double scale, but I said, I'll get back to you. I said, Dad, he charges 4 times double scale. Dan says, we don't have the track. Go ahead and pay him. So Kunkel's coming down, but I'm already not very happy with this guy because I was a studio musician. If I got double scale, I was really happy. And he's going to try. So he comes in. He's got a great smile, and his tech is tuned all the drums for him. All he has to do is walk out there, And he says, Norbert and Dan, it's a pleasure meeting you. I've heard your records, and I'm just so happy to be here. I'm thinking, yeah, you're getting 4 times double scale. So Dan says, well, let me play you the song. And so he gets his acoustic guitar out, and he plays it, and I've got my bass plugged in the desk, and Kunkel said, I think I know what to do. And I said, well, let's play it down on mic. So Kunkel goes back to the drum kit, and Dan's over here. And he said, oh, Norbert, Dan, as we lay the track down, I'm just going to play the kick drum and the hi-hat. And I said, okay. So it starts, and he goes, boom, boom. I'm paying 4 times double scale for that. I can do that, right? and so we put it down, and I'm saying, well, come in and let's listen. And Kunkel stands up and says, no. Why don't you listen? Let me add the kunga and to that, and you'll know. So Dan comes in, and it's playing, and it's but I'm looking at Dan, he's looking at me. It's the perfect part.
There you go.
That 4 times.
There you go.
It comes in.
You got what you paid for.
And I thought, could this guy be a genius? Yeah. He was a genius. Okay?
Yeah, that's
so
incredible.
He comes in, and he's only been there for 15 minutes, and we have it. And I said, well, Kunkel, I said, you can sign and you can go, And he goes, do you mind if I just hang out a little bit? Well, so Dan goes on and doubles his guitar parties, and Kunkel and I are talking, and it's just, I'm thinking, this absolute brilliance, this taste, you see. I hadn't worked with him before. And Dan comes in, and we talk a little bit, and then Kunkel said, well, I guess I need to go. Norbert, could I speak to you out in the hall? So we go out in the hall. He goes, now look, my manager said 4 times double scale. We always say that for people we haven't worked with, because some of these guys will keep me in there playing their parts they sing to me for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. If they're going to do that, I'm going to charge them. You can pay me double scale, and I'd be happy to come and play for you. I hugged him. And afterwards, I couldn't wait to work for Russ 4 times double scale Kunkel,
What a guy.
Now, your audience has no interest in stuff like this, do they?
No, they do.
Of course they do.
Tell Kunkel I told you the 4 times double scale
we
story.
We
certainly will.
Norbert, I also want to give you a chance to, we touched on it a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to talk about your book a little bit. We're so excited to read it. We're going to pick up a copy as soon as we can. But what can people expect when they pick up the book?
My manager's just met my wife.
Yeah.
and she makes coffee for me most mornings.
Wow.
You're going to send them a book? Oh, you're gonna keep sending. We have enough books for that. Okay.
Oh my goodness! Thank you so much.
Amazing. We can't wait.
If you hate the book, put it on Amazon and get $400 for it. I'm going to sign it. Okay?
I'm going to charge 4 times double scale for this book.
This is on the front cover. It's got some of the unknown people like Elvis Presley, Ray Charles, the Beatles, Joan Baez, J.J. Cale, Donovan, Roy Orbison, Dan Fogelberg, Linda Ronstadt, Jonathan. Well, anyway.
Wow. Yeah. I can't wait to find out who those people are when I read your book.
So when you get the book, also there's a video of me playing with Ray Charles in a television studio.
Wow.
And the reason you can see me is Ray would count the song off, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what tempo he counted off, he played it a little slower.
Mm-hmm. I've
sneaked around so I can see his left hand come down on the first base. And I'm in the frame. So you'll see a 24, 25-year-old Norbert Putnam sneaking into the frame to get the downbeat with Ray Charles.
What was that for? One of my favorite videos of all time is his cover of Ring of Fire. And I don't know if that's the one you were on, but
Buck Owens has done a duet.
Okay.
On Together Again.
Okay.
Together.
Yeah.
So Ray's come down to do Hee Haw, and we're doing it at the television studio in Nashville. And so and Charlie McCoy was the contractor, great harp player, and Charlie said they want me to hire more hip rhythm section for Ray. Well, growing up, I played all those Ray Charles songs when I was 16, 17, you know. And so Ray comes in, he goes, how are you guys doing today? We said, Ray, we're doing great. How are you? Well, I'm fine. He goes, you boys know any of my songs? In unison said, we know all of your songs. He said, well, I got to do this thing here with Buck. We're going to come out and then maybe we'll play. Well, we thought we were going to do 2 songs with Buck and sign the card and leave. Right? So they knocked that thing out in one take. And Buck says goodbye. He's running to another set. And Ray said, I bet you don't know this one. He started Georgia on My Mind, I think it was.
Oh, my.
We played it flawlessly. We played it in bars, okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And we finished, he goes, that's pretty good for white boys. You are white, aren't you? We said, how would you know? So we went through 6 or 7 classic Ray Charles songs, and he finally got up and started dancing around. He's bumping into all the lights, and I didn't know that, but they were taking it down. They recorded all of it.
Wow.
And as the years went by, if they needed filler on Hee Haw, they would throw in a Ray Charles classic.
Wow.
Lucky
nice.
Hee Haw, yeah.
A residual off that, you know?
That's nice.
So
that's really
cool. Ray and Elvis, they could crack that emotional code.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Wow. Norbert, thank you so much for chatting with us. We could talk to you probably for 12 more hours. I was going to ask, are you going to do an audiobook of your book? I love audiobooks. I feel like you got a great voice. I feel like you could do it.
My wife says I'll be doing one.
Okay. Well, we'd love to talk to you again when that's coming out.
34 years. I can't take any chances now. We're almost there.
Patrick, one of my favorite interviews, one of the coolest just hours of my life. It was so fun to chat with Norbert.
I feel so lucky. I mean, what a cool podcast we get to do, Ryan.
I know.
What an amazing moment to sit and listen to so many incredible stories from such a legend. I got to get his book, and I don't even need to pay $400 anymore.
No, you don't. It is coming out, a new printing. We've been talking about this for a while. This book has been incredibly difficult to find.
Yeah. It was $400 on Amazon. So now we're going to get it. And I can't wait. You guys should all get it too, and we can all listen to the audiobook together.
Yes.
But Ryan, something we do here on the show, we talk about what we did this week that was Margaritaville. So what have you done that is Margaritaville?
Well, you know, I'm going to take this for the both of us.
Okay.
We... A couple of weeks ago, we were in a parade.
That's right. We were in a parade in Newport Beach. There's going to be an episode coming out.
Yeah.
Live from the parade. You've probably never heard people broadcast live from a parade, and it's going to be us.
Yeah.
It was really fun. It was a tribute to Jimmy Buffett. We did not get any sort of endorsement or sponsorship for this. We reached out to them.
Yes.
To get a float.
Yes.
And
they graciously accepted.
we were late. We were past the deadline. Yeah. But it was very Margaritaville. We met so many cool parrot heads. The Orange County Parrot Head Club was down there, and it was a blast. So keep an eye out for that episode.
Yeah.
And you're right. That was Margaritaville for both of us.
Very Margaritaville. Being in a parade for Jimmy Buffett, that's Margaritaville.
Pretty Margaritaville. But Ryan, wouldn't you know it? It's time to check out. So until next time, I'm Patrick.
And I am Ryan. We will see you next week.
License to Chill is the official Margaritaville podcast, produced by Tamara Baldanza-Decker, Courtney Watkins, and Kirsten Winquest. Art by Tom Boyd. Music by Aaron McAnally and Mick Utley. Additional resources provided by Coleman Sisson. New episodes are released every Monday. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.